Thank you for joining me today. I'm going to work on this canvas, which you can see I've already started blocking colour in. It's a 16 by 20 and this layer is dry. So because I'm going to use some larger knives today, I'm using one of these pads that you can actually mix your paint on and then just throw the page away. Very useful because I'm going to be using a selection of palette knives and soft brushes and possibly the Catalyst blade as well, which is one of my favourites. And this is my spray with the water and the Flow Enhancer by Dale Rowney, and I've got to give that a spray now. So I'm going to mix up a little bit more of this lovely turquoise sky colour because the first layer is very just lumpy, if you like, and not very good. So I'm going to mix some of that up. Okay, give that a quick spray. Just helps the paint to go on, and it means that we can just pull that paint really easily, making those lovely sort of cloud patterns. This is what we want. We want an abstract idea, not details, not going in too worried about fine clouds and shade and that. That will come with what we use the knife for. So pulling that paint along and just blending it across. It's lovely to see how the texture works. I will admit this is actually a reclaimed canvas. They did have a different painting underneath, so there are slight ridges where there was other texture beneath, but that's okay. I'm enjoying working with that. So I'm adding a little bit of Raw Sienna to the sky as well as a little bit of Payne's grey. And now that Raw Sienna I'm going to use on the edge of that knife, just on those little highlights there, and that was all I used, tiny bit. I want to now blend that, so I'm going to clean that knife off. And I'm going to use the soft brush with just some white, titanium white paint on, and just pull that colour down very, very gently. I want it to be yellow, but I don't want it to be too heavy, so the white will take that intensity off it. I want to create a sort of sunny look, bit of light. Not quite sure what this is going to turn out as, but that's part of the fun. So that's really softened up nicely. I like that. It's warm, it's light. Just going to soften that, pull it across, pull it down, fill that little gap in there. Now I'm adding some of the burnt sienna in. It just adds the most amazing warmth, light, and it's sort of as if the sun's hitting it. And now the fun part, scraping it along with the palette knife. This is the largest of my palette knives, and I can take colour from one area and just add it to another area. It means that there's a lot of harmony. I love grazing across colours like that, and you just get the most fantastic textures that you couldn't use a brush to get. Taking some of the paint off that brush because there's plenty on there, and just pulling it upwards. I'm creating a sort of a ridge there, and I'm just blending a little Payne's grey into that sienna, pulling it along and just seeing what happens. Now I've added a little bit of sand texture. This is just titanium white paint with dry sand mixed into it to make this lovely texture. I'll put the link to my earlier video that showed you how to make this, and it's just a question of applying it with your palette knife, just scraping it into different shapes, just adding that lovely texture. You can remove it, you can put it in thick, whatever you want to do with it. And now we're just going to let it dry. Okay, here we are. So it's lovely and dry now. We can tell it's dry because there is no shine on it at all. If it's shiny, then it's still wet, so don't even try to work with it. We've got some lovely texture here, so it's going to be real good fun. I'm going to start off putting a little bit of sky into this top area. I've just lost it with the little bit of sand, so that's okay. We can just pop a little bit more back. Doesn't matter if it goes onto the texture. We can get that sorted later on. And now I'm going to add in some lovely green on that top area. It's sort of a bit like sort of growth of shrubbery or whatever in the distance. And this green has just been made from the Prussian Blue and the yellow that I used. Just running along the edge there with some white, the edge of this small knife to add a little highlight. And then back in with that lovely burnt sienna. You can see that the layers now are starting to build up. We're starting to get some interest and some texture. And it's just a question of adding, blending, and then mixing other colours in to get what you want. Just adding a little bit of pale colour there. I've decided it looks a little bit like a quarry. I'm very lucky where I live. There are moorlands and quarries quite near to me. So this sort of view is quite common around here. Adding some of that beautiful violet under the green. And then again down at the front here, because that blends those colours together and it ties your painting with the distance into the midground, and we'll put some in the foreground as well. And here I've mixed it with some burnt sienna. And you can see I've blended it in, and I'm starting to add a little green just along the edge of that line there, making it look like little bushes or just greenery in the distance. And again, this green is still the one using the Prussian blue and the golden yellow with white in and a little bit of purple, just to give that suggestion of greenery. And here I'm using that lovely catalyst blade just to pull down another mix of the purple and burnt sienna, pulling it across, adding detail. And you can see it's really starting to come together. I've put a little bit of green on here, but I'm going to put some more just really soft, because if you start off with a soft colour you can darken. If you start off with a dark colour you can put light colour over the top, so you end up with really interesting mixes. So again, it's a bit of raw sienna and that lovely green, just blending it into that texture paste. Sometimes I do blend it in with my fingers if I want to get it in between the sandy areas, but do be warned, it does hurt your fingers if you do too much of that. Sometimes it's the best way to get it where you want it, if you want it in a certain area. Adding a little grey there, I think that looks like a rock, so I'm going to put some grey into that, some Payne's grey. And now I've got some dark greens moving into that foreground. So the eye will make of this what it wants to see. All we can do, all we want to do, is just add colour and shape to see what happens. And now I'm going to put some more of that lovely purple, because on the moors we do get lots of heathers, different shades of heather, get little plants with berries, all sorts of things, and it brings that purple through, that violet mixed with the burnt sienna as well, gives it a lot of warmth. So I'm just sort of fluffing it here just to blend it very softly, very gently. And now you can see we've got quite a nice shape, but we need to add some detail into this foreground. I like this blue, and I'm actually going to keep that as if it was a little sort of shallow pool or pond just that's gathered in this area. So I'm just going to lighten that grey bit that we've got, add a little bit more blue turquoise into there. And back to the foreground again, because this pond needs definition. It needs a place, and so as we move towards the front of the painting we get a lot more detail that we can see, and we also get a lot darker colours. So moving towards this bottom right hand, I'm actually putting the green, but I'm mixing the violet into it as well. This makes a most beautiful greeny brown shade. I was very grateful to the lady who first told me this tip because it's been invaluable. A little bit more of the raw sienna, just to add that warmth. We've got some amazing colours going on here. Just smoothing it out a little bit with my finger there. I don't want it to be a formal pond. I want it to be as if it's sort of soaking into the grass around it. So we'll just continue building up the greenery, the foliage, as if we're on this moorland overlooking the distant quarry. A little bit of white just to add a little bit of shading, a little bit of highlight. Pulling it out with the palette knife. Working with a palette knife stops you actually being too fussy. If you have a small brush, it's very easy to start getting very fussy with what you're doing. If you're working with a palette knife, it's much harder to do. There we go, a little definition to that area. And back, oh, bit of sand there. It does occasionally come off. I'm making some sort of soft gestures with the Catalyst blade, which is silicone, so it's very soft. And we're getting some little grasses, little twigs, little whatever you want to think of coming up. And again, we can soften that as well. So pull some of that white into the lovely green, gives it an olivey shade. You need to stand back every now and again. When you're working like this, you need to put it either up on the wall or on your easel and step back. It's difficult to see when you're so close to it all the time. A few more grasses here with the knife edge, which are finer and sharper. And now I've put a little bit extra bits in, as you can see, but I'm really happy that the harmonies in this have worked really well. We've still got our little bit of a pond. We've got lots of texture here at the front. I hope you can see the sort of detail that we're getting. We've got areas where I haven't really touched the sand. I've left it sort of as it was, so it looks like rock and gravel. This is the bit I was saying about where you've got a colour and then you graze over the top. It just adds enormous interest. So I hope that this will give you a little bit of an idea of how you can build a painting, how you can start to build an abstract landscape fairly simply and with limited colours. And do please have a go. Like and subscribe because I will be doing some more of these. And do keep painting. Thank you for watching and I'll see you again soon. Bye bye.